Thank you, James. Welcome to Sunday service this January 9th at the Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, Vermont. I'm Judy Brook, a member of the Worship Associate team. Joining me today is the Reverend Patricia Hart. We are a liberal religious community in the heart of Burlington, guided not by a creed, but by shared values, including love, compassion, service, justice, and truth. We are an inclusive congregation, welcoming all people of whatever age, class, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, ability, or disability into our beloved community. We know that those of you joining us are longtime members or relative newcomers from the area or from distant states and countries, visitors and the just curious. You are welcome here. We acknowledge that we reside upon the traditional and unceded home of the Western Abnaki people. This land in the Lake Champlain watershed has been a site of meeting and exchange among indigenous peoples for thousands of years. The first Unitarian Universalist Society honors, recognizes, and respects the Abnaki as the traditional stewards of this land and strive to respect and protect this land while continually honoring the legacy of Vermont's indigenous people. We are in month 22 of COVID. Right now, as the Omicron variation surges, the sanctuary is open only to those creating the service, but we're an active congregation. Please visit our website at uusociety.org to discover activities and circles, discussions and classes for adults and children. If you're watching this on Sunday, please join us via Zoom for coffee hour at 10 a.m. after the service. For a link, click on Zoom Coffee Hour under Events on our website. Grateful thanks to all who made this service possible in front of cameras and behind the scenes. Special thanks to James Stewart, Director of Music and pianist, guest musician Liam Morris, our tech team, Woody Fulton and Memphis Everest, Sarah Forbes, who graced us with flowers, and Bob Fuhrer, who created a clean, safe, and well-ventilated space for us. No matter who you are, where you come from, what you believe, you are welcome here. Come, let us worship together.
And let us light our chalice. Would you say the words with us? We kindle this chalice flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. Thank you, Judy. Judy and I had a wonderful time considering different readings to make part of this service this morning, and this poem by Mary Oliver ended up being our call to worship. She called it Look and See. This morning at Waterside, a sparrow flew to a water rock and landed by error on the back of an eider duck. Lightly it fluttered off, amused. The duck was not provoked, but, you might say, was laughing. This afternoon, a gull sailing over our house was casually scratching its stomach of white feathers with one pink foot as it flew. O Lord, how shining and festive is your gift to us, if we only look and see. Join us in our first hymn.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere.
We have had many discoveries during this pandemic, including new ways of thinking about putting a worship service together. And if you've been watching with any regularity, you have seen some of the gifts that have been made available to us by a musician, composer, storyteller named Leah Morris. And for this morning's service, Leah, by the way, is in Washington, D.C. She doesn't live in Vermont, and she's sharing her work with Unitarian Universalist congregations all over the country. Isn't that amazing? This morning's story, The Cricket and the Coin.
Let me tell you about the cricket and the coin. One day, a pair of cousins were taking a walk down a busy city street. Now, one of the cousins was what you would call a city slicker, someone who lived in and was used to the urban lifestyle. The other cousin was what some people refer to as a country bumpkin, someone who was more accustomed to the rural countryside way of living. But on this day, they found themselves together in a city. And as they were walking, if you've ever been in a city, you know the sounds, the sights, the impressions that are constantly bombarding the senses. It's a loud and exciting place to be. Horns blaring, people shouting, construction taking place. And amidst all of that bustle, the country cousin said, Is that? Ha! Do you hear that? A cricket. The city cousin said, "No, cuz, no way. Listen, there's no way there are any crickets anywhere within a 20-mile radius of here. And even if there were, there's no way you could hear it over all the noise." The country cousin said, No, I hear it. There's definitely a cricket." And wouldn't you know, within a minute of continuing their walk, they found one of the few plants that was growing in the city, and there on its leaf was a little cricket singing its song. The city cousin was admittedly impressed and said, "Wow, this just goes to show you country people have great sense of hearing." But the country cousin wasn't so convinced. As a matter of fact, they thought it would be a good idea to launch an experiment to find out if it was really a matter of country people having better hearing. And so they pulled their change purse out and dropped a few coins on the sidewalk. The heads of every passerby turned toward the sound of the fallen coins. This story illustrates that we are more likely to notice things that we're used to noticing. So it's a good idea to pay attention to where we pay attention, to focus our intention and choose where we place our focus. And this story inspired this song. Are you listening to the falling leaves? Are you listening to the calling trees? Are you listening? What do you hear? Are you listening to the water dry? Are you listening to the lizards fly? Are you listening? What do you hear? What do you hear? I hear days come and go, and I hear babies growing. I hear clouds as they silently float by. I hear time as it's slowing, and one thing I know is I hear life. I hear life. Are you listening to the new day song, or a voice that tells you that everything is wrong? Are you listening? What do you hear? Are you listening to the love within, to the well where every good thing begins? Are you listening? What do you hear? What do you hear? I hear ideas sprouting, a child within me shouting, "Here's a new thing. You ought to give it a try." I hear vision becoming. I know that nothing is wanted. I hear life. I hear life. I hear life. I hear life.
Let us take this time to deepen together into a time of meditation. We will begin our meditation by sharing the joys and sorrows of our community, and then we'll hold a brief time of silence. Let's take a deep breath together, breathing in the breath of life, breathing out the breath of peace, and come into a place of holy listening. Let us hear these words of joy and sorrow for this day, Sunday, January 9th, 2022. Sorrow for the death of Sidney Poitier, an award-winning Black actor who made a conscious decision to reject roles that weren't consistent with his values or that reflected badly upon his race. Sorrow that COVID is now globally infecting over 2 million people per day. Joy for the successful deployment of the gigantic James Webb Space Telescope that will deepen our understanding of the early life of the universe. May the joys and sorrows of each be the joys and sorrows of all, reminding us of our shared humanity. As we enter the silence, let us hold that which has been spoken and that which remains unspoken tenderly in our hearts. Our reading this morning is by Epictetus, who was born a slave in what is now Turkey in 50 AD. And he became a student and teacher of Stoic philosophy as a freedman in Rome and later in Greece. Caretake this moment. Immerse yourself in its particulars. Respond to this person, this challenge, this deed. Quit the evasions. Stop giving yourself needless trouble. It is time to really live, to fully inhabit the situation you happen to be in now. You are not some disinterested bystander. Exert yourself. Respect your partnership with Providence. Ask yourself often, how may I perform this particular deed such that it would be consistent with and acceptable to the divine will? Heed the answer and get to work. When your doors are shut and your room is dark, you are not alone. The will of nature is within you as your natural genius is within. Listen to its importunings. Follow its directives. As concerns the art of living, the material is your own life. No great thing is created suddenly. There must be time. Give your best and always be kind.
As Judy reminded us this morning in the welcome, as we try to remember every single week, the land on which this meeting house sits, in which many of us live, is land that was not ceded, that was taken from the Abenaki people, who are still here. We are in the process, as a congregation, I hope this is true, for lots of us, in the process of figuring out, well, what does that mean? What can we do to not just acknowledge that injustice hundreds of years ago, but right now begin to find ways to repair that broken relationship and, in fact, be helpful. I am so grateful to the climate justice team who chose as this month's beneficiary of our shared offering an organization that we're calling Abenaki Helping Abenaki. The Nulhegan Band of the Coosac Abenaki Nation is working in one particular area to find ways to take the seeds, the plants, and specifically the seeds of traditional indigenous crops and propagate them, and thereby making more seeds that can be spread to more and more of us in Vermont and more of the native people in Vermont. So what we're doing, they're creating a food sovereignty program, and what we're doing is supporting that program in particular. Your gifts every single week make a difference in this congregation's commitment to its work in the community. Your gifts today will make a difference that will actually affect the present and the future. What an amazing opportunity. This morning's offering is about to be taken up before that, since most of us are not here and we're giving in other ways. Join me, please, in the words of offering dedication. With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and to act for justice. So there is an idea that clergy have about themselves and one another. It's sort of a joke and sort of not. The idea is that every minister has one really good, strong, compelling sermon in them. One. You might discover it early as you start writing sermons, and even if you don't, you're probably going to keep on preaching it however you can find to do that, because this particular idea won't let you go. For me, after a few years of ministering, I decided that my one sermon was about vocation, in the Latin sense of being called to some particular purpose in life. Not my vocation, but I was and I am convinced that everybody, each inherently worthy one of us, has something that we are called to do in this world. Maybe it's to be a scientist or to make music. Some are called to write poetry or to do theater or grow things. Some are called to politics, making laws, crafting compromises, changing the world. Perhaps your vocation is to make a home, a safe, nurturing, laughter-filled, and sometimes tearful place, too, for one or two or even three generations where loved ones and friends and sometimes strangers can feel at home. My father's vocation was flying planes. He never made his living at it, but he got his pilot's license when he was 16, and he loved flying and did it pretty much up until the last couple of years of his life. My brother is an architect and kind of has been since he was an annoying teenager. My sister is a chemist. One dear friend is a palliative care physician. Another uses her own many years of addiction to help others stay in recovery. Now, you are thinking about your vocation. Maybe you're saying it out loud right now as you watch, or maybe you're protesting that this is really an old-fashioned idea, that the world moves too fast now for people to settle on just one thing. One's true vocation is not always easy to figure out, so it's good to talk about it. I suppose by now I can admit that ministry is what I am called to be, because it connects me to my purpose, and it makes me never stop learning. It does not always make me happy, but it just won't leave me alone. Searching for, discovering, thinking, talking about your calling in life is engaging. It can go on for a while, for years, and it might never get to an end. But there are times when it's time. It's time to stop planning and thinking and get to doing. For me, it feels like this now is that moment. And there are at least three big reasons I can think of. One is retirement, my retirement. The end of my active ministerial career is less than 2 years away. It will finally be time when I can do and be who and what I am. So what is that exactly? How will I do ministry after I'm not a minister, But what else will I do? I don't play golf. I don't have a lot of money to take exotic trips, even when we'll be able to do that, and I already do jigsaw puzzles. I need to start figuring out what my retirement will be. Second reason, this pandemic that we're in month 22 of, it has and is calling all of us to ask big questions about our purpose, our priorities in life. I think that's really true. Initially, we just thought we were waiting to get through it. I don't know. I think now that there are big questions that we need to pay attention to while everything normal has been overturned, normal with quotes, and it's unlikely to go back, so what will it be? Everything matters so much. Connecting with people is essential. It's important to spend time with family, with grandchildren, with new friends, occasionally get a chance to hug a friend. We know how important that is now. But what about applying the other lessons that we're learning? And how do we want to hang on to what really matters? The third reason, of course, is what I've written here as the world in crisis, because I'm trying not to say impending doom. The climate crisis we're in, the failure of our political systems, the cultural and social divisions and systemic injustice that just cannot persist. It is too dangerous and too filled with possibility. So how am I called to make some sort of difference in all of that? These three challenges, and I just stopped at three, not because that's the end, but these three challenges are way more than the most comprehensive to-do list or even the latest personal organizer software can manage. I keep thinking of a couple of my favorite Vocation quotes. The first one from Lily Tomlin, who said, "I always wanted to be somebody. Now I realize I should have been more specific." And Kurt Vonnegut, who said, "We are what we pretend to be. So we must be careful about what we pretend to be." Our theme this month, our Soul Matters theme and the theme of the Path newsletter, which you've received recently, is living with intention. Intention. Also from the Latin, and it means to stretch out, to lean toward, to extend or direct. I think maybe intention is the so what that follows vocation when we figure that out and makes us show up in our wholeness in the world. That's our intention. More often than not, intention is understood as reaching for and pursuing a goal, or it can also be stretching towards something within us, moving closer to our internal compass, our values, stretching toward authenticity. And the Buddhist understanding of intention, as I understand it, is about being aware of where and who and how we are all the time. That message from Epictetus, to live fully in the situation where, in the moment where you find yourself. Intention. A man named Philip Moffitt had a very successful career as a magazine editor in New York City. But right after he turned 40, he left all of that behind to go look for his true purpose in life, to find more joy and meaning, in his words. And he spent the last 35 years studying and practicing in the Theravada Buddhist lineage. He writes this: "Setting intention is quite different than goal making. It is not oriented toward a future outcome. Instead, it is a path or practice focused on how you are being in the present moment. Goals help you make your place in the world and be an effective person, but being grounded in intention, aligned with your deepest values, is what provides integrity and unity in your life." So how? How do we do that, and to what end? My calling as a minister manifests in at least one consistent, persistent way my interest in how change actually happens in the world, in society, but starting in people, one by one, and in community. Here's another wise person helping me understand this intention, attention challenge that we have. Deepak Chopra says, conscious change is brought about by the two qualities inherent in consciousness, intention and attention. Whatever you put your attention on will grow stronger in your life. And whatever you take your attention away from will wither, disintegrate, and disappear. Which reminds us, of course, of the thing that Ralph Waldo Emerson said that's in our hymnal that we remember to read every once in a while. He said, a person will worship something, have no doubt about that. We may think our tribute is paid in secret in the dark recesses of our hearts, but it will out. That which dominates our imaginations and our thoughts will determine our lives and our character. It behooves us to be careful what we worship, for what we are worshiping, we are becoming. What we worship, what we hold up and invite to direct our lives is what we pay attention to. That's what all these people are saying. Whoa. It is so hard in these days to not mostly pay attention to this disease that has taken over life as we know it. I am not saying that we're supposed to ignore COVID or the news or the Supreme Court or Congress or voting rights or the upcoming midterms or the climate disasters that are more and more frequent. I'm not saying we shouldn't think about it or pay attention to it, but we should perhaps be careful to spare some of our attention to live in the intentions that anchor us in our deepest values. Love, perhaps, compassion, justice, joy. I have another big question that is not likely to get neatly answered before I retire. And that question, for me, is what on earth is the role of religion, especially religious community, in moving people, all of us, closer to living with intention, helping us attend to what matters? One way, for sure, are the stories that we choose to tell one another and include in our worship. I really love the simple, I thought I'd heard the story of the country mouse and the city mouse a bunch of times and didn't need to hear it again, but Leah Morris helped me understand that when we learn to listen for the sounds and images and ideas and listen to the people that we're not used to listening to or seeing, that changes us. Because once we hear or see or feel something that is new and important, we can't unknow it. And it's easier to notice the next time. This is how change happens, I think. When we shift our attention, not just for a minute, but with intention, we're never quite able to settle back into those familiar, stuck places where we're used to hanging out. A friend and colleague, the Reverend Eric Walker Wickstrom, a number of years ago wrote this little piece I'm about to read to you. He wrote it as a benediction. And I think that his intention was, you know, the benediction, the end of the service, people are mostly ready to go, and you want to somehow get their attention. And he certainly did get my attention in this. Now, you have to imagine that this is speaking to a congregation that is present in person. But I think it works, even wherever you are watching. Eric wrote, "If you are who you were, and if the person next to you is who he or she was, if none of us has changed since the day we came in here, we have failed. The purpose of this community, of any church or temple or zendo or mosque, is to help its people grow. We do this through encounters with the unknown in ourselves and in one another, in the other, whatever that might be for us, however hard that might be, because these encounters have many gifts to offer. So may you go forth from here this morning," he wrote, "not who you were, but who you could be." So I know Eric well enough to know that he is not talking about what the sermon might say in a particular worship being a thing that changes people. That could happen, maybe rarely. I know that what Eric meant and what I mean to say to you today is that being in community, a community where we are directed and invited to attend, to pay attention to what is perhaps not filling our days, to the most important things. When we are in a community where that is our shared endeavor, if we're doing it right, if we're doing it with each other, we are not the same at the end of it. We are changed by those interactions we have with other people who are also considering their vocation and how to live with intention and what they should pay attention and what they should do when they retire and how they might change their job, all the big questions that are with us right now. If we do this in community, we affect each other and we learn things that we can't unlearn after we've learned them. So you might be saying to me, but how the heck do we do that when we can't actually physically be together, except outside, except rarely, and maybe in some amount of time? Those are good questions, but I actually think that there are ways. There are ways that we can be in contact with each other. Zoom, we lament the omnipresence of Zoom in our lives or other kinds of remote contact. But we also know, I think most of us know, that we can make connections, renew friendships, and learn things from such gatherings. And perhaps in this winter, in this difficult month where we are once again not hanging out with other people in person, we can invent and cultivate ways to be together, not in person, but still together. Because the being together is what this is all about, because we help each other know where our attention might lie, and out of that comes the hope, literally, the hope for the world. So may it be. So may it blessed be.
Come my way, my truth, my life, such a way as gives us breath, such a truth as ends all strife, such a life as killeth death. Come my light, my feast, my strength, such a light as shows a feast, such a feast as mends in limbs, such a strength as makes a guest. Come, my joy, my love, my heart, such a joy as none can move, such a love as none can part, such a heart as joys in love.
The purpose of this community is to help its people grow. We do this through encounters with the unknown in ourselves, in one another, in the other, whoever that might be for us, however hard that might be, because these encounters have many gifts to offer. So may you go forth from here today, not who you were, but who you could be. So may we all. Let us extinguish our chalice. Say the words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again. Go in peace.